In 2013, award-winning kumu hula Patrick Makuakane and his San Francisco halau staged a show honoring Hawaiian-language newspapers. For 3 evenings, sold-out crowds packed the Hawaii Theater and cheered one of the island's most important but least known stories.
Well, the inspiration for Leo Kanaka came from the fact that we were working on a project called Ike Ku'okoa, which was a Hawaiian language newspaper initiative where an army of volunteers worked together to transcribe thousands of pages of Hawaiian language newspapers into searchable text. While we were working on that project, the Gerbode Foundation came out with a notice offering a $50,000 Gerbode choreographers grant for dance companies in California. Fortunately, we were awarded the grant, so that means there was no turning back. We had to come up with a show about the Hawaiian language newspapers.
Aloha kako! On behalf of my halau Nalehulu Ikaveku and myself, Patrick Makuakane, I'd like to welcome you to the Hula Show 2013. This year, we are calling our show Leo Kanaka, or Voice of the People. And here's why. From 1834 to 1948, over 100 Hawaiian language newspapers were published and distributed throughout the islands. Apparently, it is the largest native language compilation found in the Western world today.
It is incredibly important to have these newspapers preserved because they represent such an important cultural repository, especially how Hawaiians viewed their world and their past and what they thought about their possibilities for their future from the 19th and 20th century. The impact on history and the fact that you have a native Hawaiian perspective on their life, it's invaluable. And it all began with King Kamehameha III.
Kamehameha III, Kauikeaoli, is a pivotal figure, and with the newspapers, you get an insight that isn't really available anywhere else. I always knew he's the longest running king. He reigns for 29 years. He's a changeling, because he comes in as a 12-year-old perhaps, right? So he matures on the throne. Kauikeaoli, in the course of his monarchy, transitioned from an absolute monarchy to a constitutional monarchy without force from his people, without even being impressed upon by the people. It was his own vision of what would make his nation more secure. He redoes the Constitution. 1852, he redoes it and diminishes his power even further. So, I mean, what's not to admire? He's who gave Hawaii literacy. Even though it's Liho Liho who allows the missionaries, who fosters the initial schools, the court schools and whatnot. Kauikeaoli at 12, when he came to the throne, that Heau Puni Pala Pala Kou, mine shall be a nation of literacy. So he's very clear on, I want a nation. But he not only says my nation will be one of literacy, he builds the infrastructure that makes it happen. So he starts the schools, he demands that teachers be, kept by their communities. Lahaina Luna is a teacher's college. Of course, all the first students at Lahaina Luna are the cream of the crop from every district. All the ruling chiefs are allowed to send their best. That's why David Malo is there, Kamakau is there. All these people they're supposed to be the leaders. And it's there that the newspapers start. So he established these legacies today.
Hawaiian myths and legends were retold in early newspapers, printed on press very much like this one at the Hawaiian Mission House's Museum. Now, among the favorites were stories of the volcano goddess Pele, and everyone's favorite heroine, her youngest sister, Hi'iaka Ikapoli o Pele. Settling Living in her fiery domain in Kilauea crater on the island of Hawaii, Pele lies down to sleep, and the sound of hula drums lures her spirit to Kauai, where she enthralls Chief Lohiau and takes him as her own. On waking, she orders each of her sisters to find Lohiau and bring him to her. Only Hi'iaka Ikapoli Opele agrees to make the dangerous journey. This grand adventure was presented to Hawaiian readers as a daily series in the Hawaiian language newspaper, Kana'i Aupuni, in 1905 and 1906.
Island of Oahu. Hi'iaka sees the spirit of Lohiau in the clouds across the sea above Hawaii. It seems the enemies of her sister Pele have harmed Lohiau. His spirit has become a wandering ghost. Hi'iaka and her companions must make haste and reach Kauai before Lohiau is forever lost.
When the first paper started, it was started just for an instructional class to teach at Lahaina Luna School. It took on so quickly that within a year there was another paper, Ke Kumu Hawaii starts on. And then it just goes like wildfire. People would send in their stories constantly and constantly. It became a place for them to talk to each other. Things that are happening, what's going on, deaths, announcements, practices were studied in the newspaper. The very first newspaper, Kalama Hawaii, is it's an elephant. I believe the elephant is the very first paper. Imagine, pick a place. Imagine you're in Makauao in Maui, and this paper comes. Your neighbor gets a paper, and you all sit down and you share the paper, and you open and see this picture of this huge thing with a long nose that it's explained. They explain it in the paper. Not only do they have a picture for you to see this animal, but they tell you the color, where it's from, how big, how large, what it eats, where it lives. And they're just amazed. I mean, the amazement of them every month. And so they would look forward to this, right? Oh my God, an elephant. Oh my God, a rhinoceros. What is that, We never had those animals here. So it was a way to connect Hawaiians to the rest of the world and give them an open global perspective that there's a whole world out there that they don't know. And through the life of the newspapers, they're very open and interested in what was going on in the rest of the world.
Unbelievably, only 2% of all that information found in 100 years worth of Hawaiian language newspapers has been integrated into our English-speaking world today. So last year, the Halau worked on a project called Ike Ku'oko'a, the Hawaiian language newspaper initiative.
Ike Ku'oko'a was the idea of engaging people to manually transcribe Hawaiian language newspapers so that the text would be searchable. Now there's 75,000 pages of Hawaiian language newspapers that are searchable. It's rudimentary, it's a step, but it's there. That's absolutely outrageous. That's the biggest jump we've been able to make in a century, really. But the bigger product is the number of people who are so aware of what's in that repository and why it's valuable. And that's really the product. It's not the 7,000 who signed up, it's the 700,000 who learned about it. And that's exciting.
They came from all over the world and helped to transcribe something that they couldn't understand. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter that they couldn't understand the words. All that mattered was that they were being a part of saving something precious for this culture, these people, and whatever their connections were to it. So that was really important.
Well, you know, the closing number features a mele or a song about the newspapers themselves, and the newspapers were replete with songs honoring themselves. So it just seemed like a natural fit for the closing of the show. And I thought it would just make sense if we're dancing a song about newspapers, a hula about newspapers, why not use newspapers as an implement? So it was at first a bit daunting and challenging for the dancers to get accustomed to using the newspapers, but once we started, we had a lot of fun. And I'm sorry to say that hundreds of newspapers were ruined in the process, but we managed to make it okay.
We put on the roadmap Hawaiian language newspaper repository, whereas it was a barely known, untapped repository for the last 100 years. Did we finish? Not POW, don't stop us, no. But no, we're not POW yet, but we're gonna have to figure out more brilliantly crazy ways to get it done, because it has to be done, and I think we should do it in this lifetime.
Oh, I'd like that.